What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today, I want to talk about something serious, right? I want to talk about how we're at a point in this country where black people can't even knock on their neighbors' doors without getting killed. Black people can't go graduate college without getting killed. Black people can't just be black without getting killed in this country. And the argument I always hear is when there's gun violence involved. One particular group of people in this country thinks the answer is, hey, add more guns. Good guys with guns. If you just have more good guys with guns, they'll protect you from the bad guys with guns. Oh, don't take my guns away because, the bad guy's gonna have guns, and if the bad guy has a gun, you can't stop a bad guy with a gun. Then you gotta have your own gun to protect yourself. And I do understand protecting yourself. I understand the idea. But the thing is, why do we want to live in a country that requires you to need a gun just to go about your life? Why do you want to live in an environment that's so dangerous that you feel like you have to have a gun just to step outside? Why? I mean, the way people are just losing their minds nowadays. You're talking about mental illness. Right now, everybody wants to use mental illness as the go-to de facto cop-out to people in their bad decisions, or people who can't handle their emotions, right? People who have low level of thinking. And a lot of people who have low level of thinking, they try to do the simplest thing to stop the thing that they see that offends them, to stop the threat. The simplest thing is to pull a trigger, right? And the thing is, this whole idea of gun culture, right, which is unique to America. Even in Europe, they don't have a gun culture like that. Everybody around the world looks at America like we're insane and crazy. If you step outside of this country, if you step outside of America and you were to look at America from, the world's point of view, it doesn't even make sense to them, right? It doesn't make sense why Americans require so many weapons. We have more weapons in this country than we do have people. And the thing is, it seems like for the argument that the good guy with the gun, is the answer to the bad guy with the gun, where it doesn't seem like there's enough good guys, doing what they supposedly is supposed to be doing when the bad guy shows up. Because me being a combat veteran, I actually know the art of gun fighting, the real art of gun fighting. And the way it works is, and my veterans can back me up. The way it works is, if you're on a patrol, right? If I'm on a patrol, and it's me and my squad members, and we're going up and down, let's say woods, desert, jungle, wherever, right? And there's some enemy combatants there, and let's say they, start shooting us. Let's say they ambush us, right? We're trained to turn around and deliver the more firepower than what's coming at us, right? There's a shock and awe method to it, right? So if you have even if you have 20 or 30, combatants, they're shooting at you, and let's say there's only 5 of you, right? Our squad is set up to, even though there's only 5 of us, that we have the correct weapons to be able to put down superior firepower in such a way at which it would scare, right, or deter, or delete the threat, right? We also are trained to respect the ammo, respect where the bullet goes, right? Because you gotta know where your ammo, where your bullet's going, right? Because the bullet doesn't always stop at your intended target, right? It takes a lot of training to know how to use a weapon of war, right? We send people off to college to become doctors so they can use these pieces of metal that's used to cut inside your body and fix things, right? They go to college for 4 years, then they go to residency for another 4 years, and maybe they're in school for 10 years before they're qualified to be able to save a life, right? To make life or death decisions. But when it comes to a piece of lead and a tool meant to take away life, right, or protect life by taking away life, because that's what guns for, it doesn't seem like the society requires that much training. And as many good guys that there are with guns, good guys with good intentions do bad things. Good guys with no training, with weapons of mass destruction, do horrible and terrible things because they don't know how to use the weapon. They don't respect the weapon. Even if they go to the range every day, even if they think they know how to shoot at paper, shooting at paper, shooting at wood is different from shooting at somebody else that's shooting at you. It's a totally different thing, right? And people don't have a healthy enough respect for a tool such as a weapon. There's no practical use for an AR-15. There's no practical use for any semi-automatic weapon for that matter. But even beyond that, we're in a situation where the way this capitalism, right, this thing that those very same people love and tout is pressing down on society, the majority of society. It's hurting society. Capitalism is only benefiting those that either have the it factor and they can make it happen, those who are rich, those who are well-to-do, those who already have money. But reality is the majority of people, under this capitalistic system, the majority of people, they don't get the benefit. They don't truly benefit. They're a cog in the machine, but they don't benefit from what the machine produces, right? And that causes stress. That causes people to act irrational. On top of our lack of education, right, that doesn't actually teach our children how to critically think, on top of the stresses of life, right? Add a weapon into that, then you got yourself a recipe for danger. What kind of mentality do you have to say, this graduation day, the day of communal celebration of the uprising and uplifting and accomplishment of, my peers, this is the day I'm going to choose to take my gun and I'm going to shoot my weapon to try to eliminate my opposition because somebody hurt my feelings, because I'm mentally ill, because I got to get my revenge. This is the day I choose. What kind of brain or mentality does it take for a person to make that type of decision? How is that person raised? What society produced a person that would do that, right? Because that's what happened in Virginia. It was a graduation. It was at a graduation, and like 5 people, I think a little bit more than 5 people got shot. A father and a graduate got killed at a graduation, right? We live in a society where you can go to a funeral to celebrate and mourn for someone who's passed, and people will make the decision like, this is the day and that's the place for me to take my revenge because someone hurt my feelings, or I need to get back from something that person or that group has done to me. These are the type of decisions that's being made in our communities. And don't get it twisted. This happens in white people communities. This happens in Asian people communities. This happens everywhere. It's only televised when it happens in black communities, though, when it comes to the regular, gun violence. It's only televised because the narrative of black people inherently being violent has to continue. That's part of the systemic racism within the media, right? But it happens in the urban areas too. Biker gangs will go to a funeral and they'll just shoot it up. Or different clubs, different European gangs, they'll just shoot it up. Different Asian gangs in the West Coast, they have Asian gangs. They shoot each other every day. They rob stores, disrespectful. They have no community. It's just what happens when people are forced to live in a situation where every day they have to struggle, right? And then you just add more guns into it, right? And so these people who take the side of guns over life, they take the side of guns over life, right? They say, just throw more guns at the problem. Well, does that actually make sense if you really sit back and think about it? Or are you just making a ready-made bullet point excuse for why you want to have your gun, right? These same people that's pro-life, right? The sanctity of life, trying to say that life starts at an inception and seemingly cares about life, don't seem to care about life once the baby is born, because they rather protect a piece of metal than protect the children that can't even go to school now. So you can't go to school and get an education without worrying about getting mass shooting. You can't graduate without worrying about a mass shooting. You can't go to the mall without worrying about a mass shooting. You can't knock on your neighbor's door to settle any type of regular situation without worrying about getting shot. You can't get lost in a neighborhood and knock on the door for help without worrying about getting shot and killed. That's the country we live in. That's That's the society in which we created, right? That's the culture in which we live in. And there's a certain segment that does not mind this collateral damage just so long as they can have their toys, so they can go shoot at some wood and some cans and some paper, so they can have the sense of toughness and protection. But that gun is not really protecting you. Statistics say most gun violence happens with people's own weapons inside your house via a child being curious, picking up a gun and playing with it, or a child stealing the weapon that they know is a legally purchased weapon to go off and go do something heinous with it, because society has made them feel like they have no choice. Society made them feel like, the system made them feel like this is their last option. That's the society which we live in America. Yet there's a certain group of people that want to uphold that. They want to conserve that. They're conservative when it comes. They want to conserve this culture. But this is the culture that's being canceled, guys. This is the culture that's being canceled. And they don't like that, because there's a whole generation that's tired of the status quo. They're tired of the excuses every time a child gets killed. Because if you notice, it's mainly children. Mainly children getting killed. Innocent children just trying to get an education, just trying to go about their life, just trying to enjoy, their adolescence, getting killed because of the weapons that's just readily available. And just to tackle one of the excuses that they like to make all the time is, oh, well, you'll never get rid of guns, so don't make it, don't make it illegal, right? Because if you make it illegal, the illegal people are just gonna still keeping guns. They're still gonna keep getting guns, and while the good guys don't have guns, and they're just gonna be victims. Well, let me take that same logic and let's talk about what's the thing they just got, taking away the rights from women, right? Making it illegal for women to be able to make choices about whether they want to keep or terminate a pregnancy, right? By that same logic, if you make it illegal, that doesn't mean that people are not going to get it. That just means they're going to do it in an illegal way, the same way they've been doing it before when it was illegal the first time. You're going to start hearing more stories about people using coat hangers, trying to kill their fetuses, or take dangerous medicines and stuff like that to try to kill their fetuses, and they'll probably end up harming themselves, along with, the unborn child, and not even doing what they're intended to do, right? So the argument of if you make it illegal, can go both ways, but they only use that argument when it's conducive for them. You understand? But we have examples. These same groups of people, they like to use data and examples, right, to bolster their talking points. Well, that same example can be used across the world. Most places around the world do not have access to those type of weapons. Most places around the world don't have access to that type of weapons. And most places around the world, because they don't have access to those type of weapons, don't have this type of violence. All these white Western European countries that these conservatives base all their ideological, philosophical, and social, positions on, all the white Western societies that they base everything off, the conservatives in America, that they base it off of, they don't even do that, all right? They don't even have access to weapons like that. And because of that, they don't have mass killings like that. It's pretty basic and it's pretty simple. Now, people will say, well, there's already guns in America, right? There's always a lot of guns in America. That's true. But one thing I do know is ammo goes bad. Ammo goes bad, right? And ammo can be regulated. You can have a gun, but if you ain't got no bullets, you can't shoot it, right? Right? So the argument that if you make it illegal and it won't stop, it'll slow down. The argument is if you to discourage tough laws against these things wouldn't work. I beg to differ. Because if people knew that by them possessing a certain weapon, that the consequences would be so high, then it would deter a lot of people from trying to get those weapons. It's just that plain and simple. It would deter a lot of people. There are things that can be done. There are things that has been done in other countries. There are plenty of examples and data points that we can use. There are plenty of other strategies other countries have used that we can use to make a better situation for ourselves in this country. especially since all the gun violence seems to happen, within the marginalized communities of this country, right? For some reason, we don't have access to loans and great health care, but we can get as many weapons of mass destruction as we want very easily. There's something wrong with a society that's like that, So all I'm saying is just getting ridiculous. And here's another thing: if you're a Pan-African, right, and let's say you plan on moving to Africa, well, you're not going to have them same gun rights in Africa. So why promote something that you're not going to have when you go to Africa? If your destination is Africa, then you should be on the vein of getting rid of as many guns as possible, right? That's where you should be at. Because when you go to Africa, they're not going to let you just do that. I don't care what country you're talking about. They're not going to let you do that. So if you can accept it over there, why are you campaigning for it over here? That's all I'm saying. So all I'm saying is, it was the gun that did that. The reason why we're over here is that gun. Y'all understand that, right? Because a gun is really, if you're using a weapon against people who are not using a weapon, that makes you a bitch and a coward. It does. It makes you a bitch and a coward, right? And let me see if I can give you a really good example. Okay, y'all know how in the hood we used to throw the dukes, right? We used to fight, right? And after you fight to settle your differences, you would everybody be like, oh, you won, you did a good job. Even if you lost, if you held your own, you got respected. And 9 times out of 10, you and that guy would be cool or cordial, right? But since people are afraid to lose, they're afraid to be embarrassed in fights, they're afraid to get beat up, they started to pick up the weapon and a gun because they were weak, right? So they took their gun because they felt weak, because that gun made them feel powerful, right? And we call them a bunch of bitches. We even in our neighborhoods, we say the dudes that shooting, they got beat up and then they came back with a gun because they bitches. We call them, every word in the book. We call them weak, soft, right? Europeans, they were getting beat up, right? And they went and grabbed a gun, right? And that's what they did. So if we called just the one regular dude in the hood that got beat up, went and got the gun, won't put the gun down, now he's shooting everybody like he big bad, but he can't fight, we know he a bitch without that gun, right? So if you just scale that up, we got a whole group of people who are weak, and without that gun, they can't fight and they won't win. And so they have to maintain that gun. They have to keep that gun. And we have black people who've been victims of this very same gun, advocating to conserve those same people having the ability to maintain their bitchness and have their weapons so that they can shoot your ass when you knock on the door. So they can shoot your ass when you knock on the door because they're afraid of you. They show you that they're afraid of you. They say they're afraid of you. They shoot you like they're afraid of you. Yet you have a certain segment of the black community that campaigns for this culture. I just don't understand, man. I think that we're very confused. I think we're very confused thinking that the thing that we're used to, that we grow up with, is the way it has to be. Like, this is the best we can do. As human beings, this is the best we have to offer. This is the best structure of society that we can have. We shouldn't be campaigning to have more guns on the street. We shouldn't be campaigning and advocating for guns that are more effective at killing more people when people who have these weapons are not even trained to even operate these weapons effectively. They don't have the discernment, the judgment skills, or the mental illness to either make a effective decision when it comes to someone's life, whether they deserve to be alive or not, which is the biggest decision you can possibly make for another person. Yet we just willy-nilly just let everybody have the ability to make this decision on their own, with their own mentally ill brain in this capitalistic system. It don't make any sense, and it's sad. It feels so dangerous to even try to raise a child in this type of environment. You don't know what's gonna happen when you send your child off to school. I remember how my mom was when I went off to war. How anxious and how her anxiety was every time the news came on. She heard that a soldier was killed. Imagine that same feeling just sending your kid to school. So ask yourself, do you want to live in a society where you need to have a weapon to protect yourself? Because there are places where it's not necessary. Think about it. That's all I got to say. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach them. I'm out.